Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Now, just to give a bit brief background, mountain climbing, it's a very, very unique sport. And when I was a kid growing up, I was born and raised in Abu Dhabi. We used to see, I don't know, you probably know him. His name is Alan, forgetting his last name. He did like a wall feat of
Vabayev?
like, yes, I think so, right?
Vabayev?
He
Yeah.
climbed hands free without ropes. He climbed the World
Yeah.
Trade Center, the big building. And that kind of
Yeah.
amused me. I was like, wow, and everyone named him the Spider-Man.
The
So
French
what
Spider-Man. Yeah.
what kind of like, intrigued you, or like how did you go this route out of like any extreme sport you could have probably done, skydiving or like different kinds of things? What made you choose this route?
Well, honestly, since I've been young, I always been when we would go to the swing sets or like the McDonald's playground, I would always climb over the obstacles, never really play in the sets. But the actual to actually start rock climbing, it was actually just I was always interested in it, but it was really just something I started with an ex-girlfriend because when you climb, you need a partner.
Sure.
So as a couple, we were both athletic. We both wanted to find a sport to do together. So that's all it was at the beginning. Yes, I had the interest, but it was just find something to do with my girlfriend that we can have fun and enjoy together. And it wasn't long before I got hooked, and I just became addicted, and all I wanted to do was climb and get better and get stronger, and it just went from there.
That's awesome. And I know that like you have a background of gymnastics, you did martial arts, so your body might
Yeah,
be a pretty bit flexible. So how did
yeah,
that
yeah.
like play out into when did you figure out, that this is something you're confident that you can definitely take this route and make something out of it?
I don't know. I guess yeah, like when I started to climb and I started competitions, I wasn't super strong yet in the gym, but I was really good at competition climbing because it's very dynamic and they make you jump around. It's a very different style of the sport. It's not like actually being on the rock. It's way
Mhm.
more it's way more parkour. So because of my gymnastic background, I was very quick to actually be able to participate in competitions and do quite a good job, even though I wasn't performing super well on the hard actual climbs outside yet. The gymnastics really helped the competition climbing aspect of it, and again, it was another step that made me more confident and made me want to pursue and get stronger. And since I've been athletic all my life, I think my muscles were because climbing is really hard on the body.
Sure.
If you're starting off, it's really hard at the beginning, but like from doing handstands, from doing all the martial arts, all the gymnastics, my muscles adapted pretty quick to pull on small holes, and just needed to work on finger strength a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine the amount of grip you might need in that, small
Yeah, yeah,
spaces. Now, when you
yeah.
mention competitions, do you mean like specifically just climbing competitions or stuff like Ninja Warrior and those kind of things as well?
Uh, I was talking about climbing competitions, but
Sure.
yeah, I recently, like a couple of years ago, I started Ninja Warrior, and
Okay.
uh, I didn't do much training for that, but I was really good, really fast. So yeah, I did. I I I made it to the nationals in Vegas this year, like not the
Nice.
TV thing, just like the actual
Hmm.
regular Ninja Warrior competitions. But because of COVID, we couldn't go. But yeah, there wasn't. We were only two in Quebec males that were allowed to go.
Wow.
So yeah, the
Wow, that's
ninja, yeah, it goes pretty well when I do those comps.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can imagine that for you, it might have came like kind of naturally because you're
Yeah,
climbing
exactly.
and Ninja were just like obstacles and moving quick.
Yeah, it was supernatural. It really feels ninja really feels like it's a part of me. Like everything, it's like everything I did my whole life to get here, to get like all my skills I have just easily translate into ninja. I'm ready for all the obstacle courses. I
Yeah.
have all the skills just from life, just from growing up and doing all these sports.
Sure, that's really amazing to hear. And now I know that like, you're a professional climber at this point, right? So I know you probably know that there are a lot of like climbing gyms and even like gyms like Lifetime and stuff, they have like their climbing walls and stuff. Now, how is it different? Like I would assume that's where you kind of started off as well as indoor
Yeah,
climbing and then kind of
in
like
the gym. Yeah,
transitioned. How is the
yeah.
indoor versus outdoor climbing different?
Well, the big difference is when you're climbing, for both it's a puzzle. You have to figure out the harder the climb gets. It's not just about always the holes getting smaller or harder to hold. It's a puzzle. When you do a boulder, you have to figure out the way of doing the boulder. Unless you start climbing, you'll never really understand, I guess. But when you see a boulder, like it's not just like go to that hole, get to that hole. There's very specific ways you have to move your body, or like put like a foot, a drop knee to reach a hold. It's very technical. Climbing is very technical also. It's not only about strength. And the difference between indoors and outdoors is that even though you have to read the problem indoors, the holds are like green or red. They're there. They're easy to see. You can
You have
see
more
where the holds
options.
are.
Your options are visible to you.
They're, yeah, you don't have more options, but they're visible to your eye right away. You still have to figure out how to get to the hold and
Sure.
move your body, but the options are, you might have actually more options outdoor, because
Okay.
when a setter sets a boulder, he sets the holds. You pretty much, it's pretty hard. If he's a good setter, it's hard to not do it the way he intended it. But when you get outside, already you have to figure out all that stuff. You have to figure out how to move your body to the climb, but you have to find the holds. Sometimes you don't see them right away. Sometimes you don't see the right option right away. Sometimes you see a smaller hold, especially when you're on a route like on rope climbs and you're going up and you've never been up the climb. Sometimes you're climbing and you look like in a gym, boom, I see it. The next hold's red. I figure out how to get to the red hold. But outside, you're there and you're looking up and you don't see anything sometimes, and you just sometimes the holes are blind, and you just if you see a little bump and you try to reach for it, and oh no, that's not a hole. And then you think you have nowhere to go, then you move your body in the right way, bam, you throw it and you find a good hole that's just hidden in the rock. So it's more, so that's really the main difference, is that the holes are very much hidden outdoors. You can't see, you can't see where you're going. You have to, it's harder to figure out. It's a lot harder.
And what would you say is like, let's say, how does it work in climbing? Is it timed? Like, do you have your own personal best record that you want to try to make it, or is it the distance? How does that work when versus indoor versus outdoor for you?
They're both the same, but it's really the grade. Like it
Okay.
starts at 5.6, then it goes 5.7, 5.8, 5.9. Then when it gets to 5.10, it goes 5.10A, 5.10B, 5.10C. Like I climbed 5.13A, and like my goal is just to like you could probably, if I bring you outside, you can probably climb a 5.7 because it's really really easy. But if I'll put you on a 5.13A, you won't be able to move at all.
Sure.
Like you
Sure.
you won't understand. The holes are way too small and way too hard. So they really grade. They, when you go outside to a wall, there's a bunch of climbs and they're all graded different. And you go in a section of the wall, it's almost blank because the holes are super small. That's you always want to do a harder. You always want to go to the harder climb you can do. You do hard climbs and you want to climb something harder every time you progress.
That's amazing. And I can imagine how challenging and how you have to be prepared mentally part, you know? Now,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
before we kind of like talk to the mental aspect, I want to touch on the point we talked earlier about Alan, right? Now, how does
yeah.
that differ? Is all climbing the same, would you say? Like the way you prepare for it, the way you kind of like approach it, whether he's climbing buildings or now you're
Yeah,
climbing
yeah.
mountains, is it all the same?
The way you mentally prepare and the way you approach it, whatever it is, the styles differ in the climbing sometimes, but it's pretty much the same. When you're climbing without a rope, you have the only difference is when you're climbing without a rope, even though you can climb on real rock without a rope, it's the same thing as climbing a building without a rope. But the difference in the preparation is really, you really have to, the way you climb is much more slow, and you're sure you're not falling. When you're climbing on a rope and you see the next hold and you're feeling pumped, you just take risks. When you're on rope, you just throw big moves, risky moves. You might fall, but you try it, and then you stick it and you're happy and like, yeah, I got it, and you keep going, you push hard. When you're climbing without a rope, you make sure every move is perfect. You make sure you never feel risky, or you never feel like you're gonna fall. So it's a little more concentration when you're free soloing.
Yeah, because you have that little bit of like a soft cushion, like a protection when you're with the
Yeah,
rope. So you're like kind of like you can
exactly.
take that
You take
chance.
you take chances. Yeah,
Now, how has your climbing over the years? I know I just wanted to ask you, like, how long has it been since you've been climbing again?
I've been climbing since 2014.
So I'm 14, right? So that's like 7 years now.
Yeah.
For almost 7 years, how has your climbing evolved or developed? Like, what have you seen changes in terms of how you approach or like how you pick where you want to climb over the past
Yeah.
7 years?
Well, um, at first, like the first thing that you have to get over when you're climbing, like I got pretty strong pretty fast. Like 7 years is not that long. Like I compete against the guys I compete against, they've been climbing sometimes for 20, 25 years. So I got pretty strong pretty fast. Like I said, because of my all my athletic ability I've
Sure.
had. But at the beginning, the first couple of years, even though I got really strong, at one point I got stuck because a hard part is getting over the fear of falling when you're climbing. That's the first step you have to conquer, is like, okay, you're climbing when you're comfortable, even though you're getting strong very fast, you're comfortable on all these climbs. And then you hit a level where you're like, okay, now I'm climbing hard enough that I'm kind of not comfortable on the level that at the level that I'm climbing. And now like I'm scared to fall. I don't feel confident anymore. So for that, I started going to the gym, because when you're climbing on ropes at the gym, people like, when you're tired, you say, okay, take. They take up the rope and you get to
Yeah.
relax a bit. So I had to start by telling myself I'm not allowed to take anymore. I have to push through every time. And then I started doing that. And then a year of doing that, and I was climbing harder and better stuff than I ever had. I was just I was just getting to the top, and I'm like, oh my God, I would always ask to take a break before, but now that I'm pushing through, it actually I actually make it to the top of the climb. So that was the first progression, is really, okay, now I'm not afraid to push through. I trust when I fall, I trust that the rope will catch me. I trust the gear. I trust my partner. That was the first thing. And then with time, you just get better and better with your technique. You your technique gets better, your strength gets better, you train your fingers, and it's just a lot of, you're always getting a little stronger, and you're always improving your technique, your footwork, working on that slowly.
Now, you just mentioned that, like how there's always this fear of falling. And I know, like,
Yeah,
before we get into the diet and workout part, because that's like the
yeah.
easy part,
Hmm.
how do you prepare yourself? Like, first thing I want to ask you is, now versus 7 years ago, what is the first thing
Yeah,
that comes to your mind when you prepare for a climb? Like 7 years ago, what were you
yeah,
thinking when you first started to climb?
yeah,
And now when you're actually, like, fully prepared for it, you know what to do. What is the
yeah.
first thought that comes to your mind? Like, what is your process?
uh so of course, so right now, honestly, I don't, when I go climbing, before I get there, I don't overthink it.
Mm,
Like, I don't always, sometimes I know I'm gonna climb hard. Sometimes I'm just going out and I'm gonna go to the mountain and choose my climb. And maybe once I'm there, I'm gonna start warming up, and then I'll see how my body feels if I want to go hard. Honestly, when I go climb, I'm since I'm not scared anymore, I don't have that mental fear anymore. I'm just ready to go have fun, honestly. I'm just thinking like, chill, we're going to go climb, we're going to have fun. And that's pretty much my mindset now. And then once I get there, and then once I see what I want to get on and I find the hard climb, that's where the mental maybe changes a bit, and I know I have to push. And for that's outdoor climbing. But if we're talking about competition, um I do like kind of talk to myself like, you got this, you're strong, you can do this. I like kind of like hype myself up a little bit. It's really all mental, my preparation. Always like, okay, you've been training hard, you've been doing good. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you got this, you're strong, you can do this. I do a lot of like trying to hype myself up in the mirror, honestly.
so even now, 7 years later, you still at some point are always like kind of having this mental battle of
Yeah,
pushing yourself. So now
yeah.
for that, do you, on a general basis, do you meditate?
I don't really meditate, but the like I said, the thing that I do that is close to meditation is really talk to myself and tell myself I can do this, and tell myself I got this, tell myself. That's pretty much my version, because I don't actually sit down to meditate about it too much. But you do, once you go on a climb and you didn't succeed it, you learn all the pieces. I do take the time to just sit down and and like remember the climb in the back of my head, remember every hole, remember every body position. So yeah, you do sit down. Once you did a climb a couple times, you really know it by heart. You just sit down and you try to memorize the climb for next time you go.
And how do you say that, like, when you're preparing a climb, is there, I mean, after the climb, sure, because you've already done it. Now, when you go there the next time, or if it's a new climb, do you like
Yeah.
picture or envision the entire climb before you go there? Or you're just thinking on the go, like as soon as you're up? How does that work for you? Like, do you envision this is where I'm gonna, get this grip, this is where I'm gonna move?
Yeah. So as soon as you get there, you look at the climb and you try to envision, you try to see as much as you can. If the climb is really hard and there's videos online about it, sometimes you look it up and you watch other people climb it
Sure.
to try to know, to try to be ready. Is if it's really hard and you really want to prepare yourself to climb it, you can, because some people want to on-site. If you on-site something, means you have to go to the climb, not know anything about it, and climb it first try. That means you on-sited the climb. But if you climbed it, but you had information and you know about it, that's called a flash. So some
Okay.
people like to on-site, so they like to get to climbs at a high level and be like, I want to try this climb with no information. I'm just looking at it and I'm going to get on it. That's, I want the on-site. And some people are just like, they don't want the on-site. They don't even want the flash. They want to climb the thing because it's that hard for them. So they go online and they watch people climbing it, and they look at their body position. They look at what holds they take before getting there, so they could go. If the climb is online, a lot of climbs are not, but when they are,
Hmm.
you get to learn all the moves sometimes before you get there.
Absolutely. And you're a mountain climber. So for you, I would assume, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that like going to a certain level, going to a certain height, and once you've achieved the entire climb, the fear aspect for you is gone now. You've successfully climbed it. How would you say that? What is your mindset to overcome like fear in general? Like, does it
Yeah.
help you? Does mountain climbing help you overcome fears in other things, other aspects of life as well? What do you do to prepare yourself away from mountain climbing and others? Is it the same concept that you go with?
Well, for climbing, I mean, the there's a lot less fear because I've been doing it for so long and I'm so comfortable. So it's different, because for everything else, I still, when I try something new, the fear is really high compared, and sometimes I find it ridiculous because I'm like, wow, I do some crazy mountain climbing
Yeah.
stuff and I got no fear, and
Yeah.
then I'm doing this, which is not as bad, and I'm scared.
Yep.
So it's very different. But one thing that I did learn from mountain climbing is failure, because one thing you do a lot, like most of climbing is failure. You don't get a lot of things first try when you're climbing hard.
Sure.
You fail and you go back. So that's one thing though that I learned a lot from climbing, is to accept failure. And just because you fail, you keep going. So that helps a lot in other sports. When I fail at something, I know a lot of people, athletes in other sports, when they come climbing and they fall and they fall, they get so upset. They're
Sure.
so upset that they keep falling and they just want to climb it. I'm like, it's not supposed to be that, like, it's not supposed to be that easy. Climbing is about failure. Then when I go on to other sports and I fail, it doesn't take me down at all. I just know practice makes perfect because I'm so used to it with climbing.
Sure. So you would say that overcoming failure is the way to overcome fear of any
Yeah,
sport or any
yeah,
any kind of
yeah.
activity.
It kind of it helps a lot, I think. Yeah,
Okay, definitely. I mean, that's something I guess people don't realize. Like when I first went skydiving, right? It was
yeah,
it was a really, I mean, of course, you got to do with it's a tandem jump, right? You can't do it by
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
And it was a very actually like I was excited for it until the plane took off.
yeah,
The plane took off and I started looking outside. I'm like, okay, like I don't know if I want to do this.
yeah,
But then I just let the guy, at that point you don't really have
yeah,
a choice. He just jumps with you. And it was actually
yeah,
like breathtaking, it was actually a
yeah.
very, very fearful yet exciting. And I'm like,
Hmm.
and then I did it twice. The following year I did it again. And now I still had that fear, but at the same
Hmm.
time, now I had that confidence that you know what, it's gonna be a short span, you'll be good. So I think that's
Yeah,
really helpful in like understanding that whatever it is, it's temporary. And
yeah,
then once you overcome it, that's when your actually success really lies there.
yeah.
Now, being in mountain climbing for 7 years now, what is one big hindrance or one big difficulty you see every time you climb, or you see, in the whole career that you've been in? What is the most difficult thing that you face?
Um, honestly, I think the most difficult thing is the finger injuries because
Hmm,
they have, if you're not careful, they happen so often and they're not big. They're just, it's just a little, if you, well, if you're not warmed up enough, or if you squeeze something a little too hard and you just get a little tweak in your finger that doesn't really bother you, you can live, you can go on and work and do everything. It's just a little tweak in your finger, but it cuts your climbing for for a couple weeks, or you have to tape up your finger all the time. And you, because we're climbers, we keep climbing and we maybe should take a week or two off. But that's really something with climbing. Like, I like climbing compared to other sports because when I was doing like gymnastics and stuff, I would break an ankle, then like you can't walk.
sure, sure.
But like that's, and so, but the thing about climbing is that like you get all these little tweaks in your body, and that's really annoying because every time you're trying to push forward and you're trying to get to the next level, you got a little finger injury, and then like, oh, you can't strengthen your fingers after you can just climb. And yeah, that's really one of the big things is all the little injuries you get on your fingers and on your bones and on your, yeah.
So over the past 7 years, you've been injured a lot. I would assume your
Yeah,
fingers, your
yeah,
wrist. What has been your
exactly.
most severe injury, if you would say any?
My most severe injury would be like a finger injury, but like a bad one that the finger really hurts for a long time, for like a year,
Like
and
a
just,
broken
yeah,
or a sprain?
it's the tendon in the finger
Hmm. Okay.
that yeah. And it sometimes also elbow, like tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, you get that in climbing. And it's just, you can't, you want to go back to climbing and you hold the hold and it just sends a shock to your elbow, then you just can't climb.
I would say that, like injuries are part of it,
Yeah,
and like you have to kind of overcome any of those things. So I mean, that's like I guess that's why you keep pushing yourself as part of the sport. Is that any sport, injuries are part of it. You're gonna deal with it, and then how you come back mentally is what kind of helps you.
yeah.
Now let's get to the juicy part of this conversation. Right now, how does
Mhm.
your diet and workout look when you're, let's say, competing versus when you're climbing casually versus when you're in season, off season? How does that look for you as a mountain climber?
Um, so honestly, I don't have any crazy diets. Um, uh, but I do know a lot of like, one problem in the climbing community is actually um, a lot of climbers during competition season or when they really climb, their diet, it's kind of a, they really try to lose weight a lot, but it's unhealthy. And then there's a documentary on that also. And then the best way to be a good climber is to get stronger, but a lot of climbers take the easy route and they try to lose a lot of weight.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm not, I mean, I eat healthier than I used to back in the day, but I don't have a crazy specific diet. I do my best to not eat too much junk, but besides that, I just I don't have any special diet. And yeah,
So how does that, like, when you say lose weight, does that impact the way you climb? Like, does you being
because
more heavy is difficult
yeah,
versus you being
exactly, because these they get pretty strong, but instead of getting stronger because to climb harder, they lose weight and then they climb so much easier because they're lighter.
okay? And I mean, I would assume that that makes it different than a competition because you got to be quicker and
But
that kind of like with
outside
climb.
also,
Okay. So you're saying
it's
like
just
if you're heavier, then you're kind of prone to get more injured or like lose a grip or like kind of like not successfully
it
do a climb.
if you're heavier, you have to get stronger,
Okay.
but you just have to keep getting stronger if you want to climb harder. But they start getting strong and then they want to climb harder and then they can't do a climb and then they lose the weight to, because they're strong enough to hold a small hold if they weigh less. But it at the end of the documentary, you see that the people that had problems with that over the years are like, at the end they say it feels so much better once you you get stronger and stay in a healthy weight than then it felt good back in the day when I was light and I thought I was strong. But now that I'm healthy and just strong and I can climb as hard as I used to, it feels even better. People take the easy route and lose weight instead of working on their finger strength.
This thought just came to mind when you said if you're heavier, you got to get stronger.
Yeah.
Does it consider like power lifters, for example, right? They're really heavy, but they're strong. You would think of
Yeah.
someone like that kind of physique would be able to climb a mountain or complete a climb.
Well, out of I've seen a lot. I've brought up a lot of athletes from different sports into climbing, but at the end of the day, no matter how strong they are, what nobody has is the finger strength that
Sure.
all that climbers have. That's like they start off good on the easy climbs, but I mean, even these people they train their fingers, but at a minimum, it's really something unique to climbers. Nobody has our finger strength.
No,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
light or heavy, at the end of the day, you need that finger strength.
I know you talked about your diet, how you're like fairly eat clean,
Yeah,
like it doesn't really
yeah,
differ what you're doing
yeah,
because that's kind of like part of your lifestyle. Now, how
yeah.
does your workout differ? I mean, and before that, could you specifically touch on like when you talk about finger strength, like what does that entail? What does your training routine look like?
So for finger strength, what we use in climbing, there's a campus board, which is like a overhanging board with rungs, and you just do like finger training, like jumping up the board. And then there's hang boards where there's three types of main trainings for the hang board. If you want to work your endurance, you just hang for 10 seconds, then you let go. You hang for 10 seconds, and you let go for 10 seconds. You hang for 10 seconds, and you do that until you can't hold on anymore. That's the endurance part. And then for strength, there's two different ways. There's you hang, you have to be able to hang on the hold you're holding for 8 to 12 seconds. If you can hold longer, you go to a smaller hold. And then when you find that hold that you can hold for 8 to 12 seconds, you train on that. So you hang for 10 seconds, and then you fall off, and then you take a 2-minute break, and then you hang. So then after weeks and weeks, you can go smaller and smaller and smaller. And then the other way of training is adding weight to you.
Hmm.
Same thing, 8 to 12
Like a
seconds.
weighted
But now,
vest or a belt,
yeah,
something.
exactly. And now the holds get bigger because you're adding weight. You probably start off bigger, but again, you find that hold that's 8 to 12 seconds. With the weight, you hang for 10 seconds. And then when you can't, you have to take a 2-minute break. Hang for 10 seconds, 2-minute break. So that's the finger strength. That's the training that climber does that no one does, that gives you the finger strength. But if anybody besides the climber does those exercises, they will for sure injure their finger.
Okay.
Before you start doing the campus board or the fingerboard, it's suggested to climb for 2-3 years
Sure.
to have for your fingers to be adapted to start adding weight to them like that and pressure.
Now, what about the other regular workout? Like your upper body, lower
Yeah,
body.
yeah.
What is your training involve?
Like the training is mostly climbing. It's mostly climbing, just different types of climbing. When you want to work the upper body, overhang climbing. The gym stuff you do is mostly like when you're climbing, you use the top of the fore. It's
Sure.
sorry, you use the bottom of the forearm. It's
Sure.
all here. So it creates an imbalance. So when you do gym training, you have to train this muscle
Forearm,
to
right.
kind of have it balanced. But I do the wrists a bit. I do this muscle, but I don't do that much
Heavy
weightlifting and
weightlifting. Okay.
hefty weightlifting. Climbers do. There is a lot of climbers that do it. I just don't feel I just feel I'm okay with just a lot of climbing. I just climb as a lot. And I climb, I work on my weaknesses by climbing stuff that I'm not good at. And yeah.
Would you say, does that make a difference versus people who weightlift versus not? Because I know we talked about like being heavy, but let's
Yeah.
say if someone is muscular and
Yeah.
versus someone who's just like, in a really good shape,
Yeah.
does that make a
Yeah.
difference in how fast they climb or how good their grip is or how their technique is?
I think it just depends on the person. There's amazing climbers, super strong climbers that are like muscular and ripped, and then there's super strong climbers that are not so muscular and ripped. Yes, they all have the finger strength and the technique, which is the big part. Finger strength and technique is what you need the most. But I mean, in climbing you have all the types of all the different types of bodies, and all the and depends who you are. Some people need to use some people use the gym to get more strength, to get those one-arm pull-ups, and some
Sure.
people are just a little more natural. So there's really all the body types of climbing at the high level, and it just depends who you are.
Right, absolutely. Now for you, I know you talked about the finger strength, right? I was actually gonna ask you, like, you don't use any of those bands that, they come with, like, finger strength or like forearm strength that you gotta move around.
I use the bands when I'm injured. When I'm injured and I
Okay.
just want to exercise the muscle slowly, yes, I use the bands. All those hand grip stuff you see that are made for, I guess, finger strength. I
Yeah.
use all that, but for recovery.
Okay.
Those are
Okay,
all
but
my recovery tools.
other than
But
that, you're in the gym.
to make the fingers strong, yeah, you have to go hardcore, like put weight on your body, put 30 kilos and hang on a small finger hold
Wow.
and just yeah.
That's impressive. And what would you say? Would you say that's like your favorite part of working out is the finger strength, or what's like your favorite workout or exercise that like really gets you like, you know what, I want to get better at this, and this is gonna help me get better at my sport?
Uh, it it depends. It depends what my weakness is at the time, I guess. Right now, I guess the campus board is something everyone appreciates because that's the board which is overhanging where you climb up, because it's like a mix between climbing and
Strength.
and the fingerboard. So the fingerboard is very hardcore on the fingers, and then when you're climbing, it's obviously like you're enjoying yourself. So the campus board is nice because you get to like throw big moves, have some fun climbing like games you do on it, but at the same time, you're always on little finger holds and you're training your fingers. So that's a favorite training tool for a lot of people.
That's exciting. And I didn't know that, like, that's a very unique form of training, because I think every
Mm,
sport pretty much involves a lot of traditional explosiveness, running,
yeah,
weightlifting, stuff like that. But I
yeah,
guess it's unique to your sport because that's where
yeah,
I was under the assumption that, you need a lot of upper body strength to
yeah.
climb, but you just cleared that in reality it's the finger strength that helps you.
Yeah, like some climbers have all the upper body strength, but some climbers just have such amazing technique, and they both perform very well. But at the end of the day, you do need the strength in the hands for
Oh,
sure.
this might be a little bit of a weird question, but does it matter like how thick or thin your fingers are in climbing?
A little
Like let's
bit,
say someone's
but
heavy, or let's say yeah. And
honestly,
does height play a role?
okay, so honestly, my fingers, all climbers get like my fingers are when I show people, they're like, whoa, your fingers are thick. So they
Yeah,
actually are like they're not that thick, but they actually are thick from climbing. Like you don't realize until you look at them and you're like, well, my fingers got really thick.
sure.
So starting with the thickness of the fingers, it makes a difference for crack climbing.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different climbing styles. Crack climbing is like you climb cracks with hand
Okay.
jams. Sometimes they're finger jams. So when you get to crack climbing, sometimes thick fingers. It actually depending the climb, it can be a positive or a negative. So sometimes the crack is a little wide, so like the smaller fingers have a lot more trouble climbing it, but the thicker fingers, they can climb that crack easily. And some climbs have such thin small cracks that a lot of people have trouble getting their fingers in, and they climb it anyway, but it's much harder for them than someone who has smaller fingers and can fit in the climb. And for height, uh, most people would say that being tall helps for sure. I climb with a lot of people. They're always skipping moves. Sometimes I get upset because I'm at the gym and I'm trying to really hard climb it, and somebody who's like strong but also taller could just like skip the move. I'm like, that's
Strips
not
like you.
fair. But a lot of the tall people would say that there is moves sometimes where you gotta bunch up into a corner or like really get into a small body position, and that is better for the smaller climbers. And a lot of the tall people say that there's just as much uh, moves that are easier as a small person than there is as a tall person. You just notice the tall people moves more, but I disagree. I definitely think being tall helps 100%.
So what would you say what is your height, if you don't mind me asking? Because you said tall people. I was under the
Yeah,
assumption that you're like at least close to 6.
I'm 5'8".
Okay, 5'8". So you're normal height.
Yeah,
So you're
normal
saying the
height.
people that are when you say taller, you're saying people who are like 6 and probably
Yeah,
closer to. Okay.
and honestly, when I say height is not actually the thing, because in climbing you check your apex, so that's
Span.
from when
Okay.
you stretch your, yeah, you span from finger to finger. It's usually it's supposed to be your height. So I'm a +1, so I'm 5'9"
Okay.
finger to finger. That's what's important, not the height, because I
Sure.
know some people who are like a +8, so they have
Wow.
really long arms. So so I would say as a climber, I'm not 5'8", I'm 5'9". So
Sure.
obviously tall people do have a big appendix. They don't have small arms, but the important thing is not actually the height. It's actually because if you get a tall person with like a little bit shorter arms, like if they're 6'1", but then their arm is 5'9", well, even though they're tall, we have the same tallness for climbing.
Oh, and I think it's very similar to, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very similar to even how swimmers have an advantage with their span being wide because then they have like
Yeah,
longer strokes.
yeah, that would make sense. I don't know too much about the swimming, but yeah, it would be the same.
Now, is there I wanted to ask you, Joshua, like what has been your most challenging climb that you were able to successfully complete? And the one probably like you really remember the most or is your favorite?
Yeah. Um, the thing about remembering all the hard climbs is that, like, right now off the top of my head, what I can think of is like there was a climb called Adonazin. It's a 512 sport route, which like I worked on it back in the day so hard, and then I got to the top of that route and I was like looking at my arms and they were pumped, and I was like I was freaking out. I couldn't believe I made it to the top, but like I can do that climb now like with my eyes closed.
Sure.
Like you're always going for a harder climb, so I can't remember the like 512 is like super easy for me now. But if you ask right now, if I think of the last thing I remember really freaking out about was that climb. But like right now, I didn't succeed it, but now I'm working on a big 513A roof crack. It's a trad climb
Hmm.
where I'm upside down climbing a roof. Like I didn't succeed that yet, but that's definitely once I get that, that's gonna be like my
Achievement.
big thing. But the thing is, in 2 years, I'm gonna get way past that, and I'm gonna be able to go back and do that easily.
Absolutely.
So it's like once you're working, like I can talk to you about the climbs I'm working towards because
Sure.
they're like big visions and they psych me. But once you actually get to the top of a climb, it's kind of sad sometimes. You're like, well, it's over. All that hard work and all that stress to getting like it's done. It's over.
Yeah.
You can't believe it, and you're just like you're just thinking of your next goal, and then like it's just in the past like so quick.
Like that's awesome. Like that's amazing because like at that point your challenge is like not stuck to one thing. You're just
Yeah,
like constantly like next one, next one, next one.
exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
have you internationally like have you traveled across anywhere across the world to climb yet? Like has that been a thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've climbed a lot around Canada. I've climbed in the US, and I've climbed in Cuba.
Oh, nice. Okay. And is there
uh
like a
I,
dream location that you want to climb or you're like, one day that's where I want to be?
well, I mean, definitely Yosemite.
Okay, Yosemite.
El Cap is what I'm excited to eventually climb. I just haven't been yet.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. I mean, I would imagine because that's what as a climber, I would assume that you have like there's so many mountains, like people want to
Yeah,
climb the Everest, people want to climb this, people want to
yeah,
climb that, like, but there has to be where you gradually get to that point eventually.
yeah, yeah.
And now, how did COVID kind of like impact your whole fitness, your climbing? Like, did you feel like due to COVID, you kind of like fell back a little bit where you had to pick up? How did it impact you in any way?
So yeah, COVID impacted a lot of climbers. But I was lucky because when COVID hit, I was in Florida.
Hmm,
There wasn't outdoor climbing, but the gyms were still open, so I was able to keep all my training going.
sure.
Everyone that was back here in Montreal, all the gyms were closed.
Yeah,
No climbing. So yes, Florida is flat. There was no actual outdoor climbing to do, but
sure.
at least the gyms were open, so I was able to keep training. And I luckily didn't get impacted by COVID. I was always training the whole way through.
But when you came back to it, it just felt natural. You're like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
still in the
Well,
game.
exactly. Yeah. When I came back, I was actually, I actually came back super strong because doing all that training, it was almost a positive because when you climb outdoors, you don't get stronger. You can go for 1 year and climb outdoors and climb super strong and hard stuff, but like that's because you're in a specific section with a specific style, but then you want to kind of do other climbing, and then like it's hard. You come to the gym, you can't climb routes because they're so consistent. Climbing in the gym is really your training. So since I was able to just not go outside and just do gym climbing and gym training, really got me stronger. When I came outside, everything was like I was climbing at my highest level easily, actually.
That's awesome. That's really exciting to know. Now,
Yeah.
Joshua, like what advice do you have for people who are starting to get into mountain climbing? I have a few friends who I see, they post on their social media. They're trying their hard in the indoor gyms and different kind of
Yeah.
like angles and stuff. So what
Yeah.
is some advice that you would give to people who want to like kind of start this as recreational and maybe, try to make this make a career out of this?
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, the main advice is really just like climb. Like for the first 2 years, just climb a lot because you can't. There's not much you can do to level up besides just climb a lot. You have to get used to all the different styles. You got to get used to climbing. You got to let your finger strength get there. And and a good thing about climbing in the gyms, like climbers are usually very friendly, so climb a lot and talk to people and ask for advice
Sure.
and ask. And when you can't do a climb, when you're looking at a climb and you're having trouble with it, just ask people to like, why can't I do this climb? I'm having trouble, do you mind helping me? Because climbers are usually always friendly and down to help you climb. And the next step would be, if you want to go outside, is to take a course and learn how to manage the ropes and everything before you start going outside. And once you go outside, you're going to be climbing way lower grades that you were climbing in the gym. Like even
Sure.
if you get strong in the gym, when you go outside, it restarts. But then after a couple months outdoors, you can easily, after you learn how to read rock, you can easily get back to your actual strength, gym and outside, as being the same.
It's amazing. And how much, in your experience, how much time would you say someone needs to spend climbing before they can like kind of like solo climb outdoors?
That really depends on the person, honestly. And when you're talking solo, you're talking with no ropes.
Yeah, with no ropes or like, even with ropes, but like now they're just confident to like
Yeah,
go outside and just by
yeah,
themselves, they're like
yeah.
just like climbing it
Yeah, some people, I know some people that have been climbing for years and still don't have the mental part down, and they're still scared, so they won't do anything like
outdoors.
that. So
Okay.
it really depends on the person, on their mindset, on what they feel, on what they want to accomplish. And it can be really quick. It can take you, you can start outdoors, and after a year, you learn a lot, and you learn a lot about all the techniques, rope management and everything, and you decide you want to climb by yourself. And some people are just not interested in climbing alone and doing that stuff, type of stuff.
Absolutely. Now, before I let you go, Joshua, I have two final questions for you. Number one is that has there been ever been a moment, because I know this is a dangerous sport, where
Yeah.
you kind of fail or you like were at a risk of like losing your life or like, injuring yourself really bad that made you think like, okay, I'm gonna take a break or I'm gonna stop doing this?
Not really. There has been scary moments, and I mean, my whole life has kind of been like that. A lot of scary moments, a lot of like, oh, I almost fucked up, but
Sure.
not enough to make me freak out and be like, maybe I shouldn't do this. It makes me think about it. It makes me think about, okay, maybe you should be a little safer. Maybe you should not do stupidities like that, or not do what you did. But nothing ever made me want to say like, okay, I have to stop. It just made me say, be more careful.
Okay. And the second question is, if you had an option to choose one person, dead or alive, that you want to climb with or train with or like, show them the ropes for climbing, who would that be?
Uh, I guess because there's so many climbers that would be nice to climb with, but every climber would be a different style. So I guess because right now I would want to be in Yosemite, I would probably want to climb in Yosemite with Alex Honnold.
Okay.
Or
And again,
Fu-
I should specify that was a really good answer. It could also be one person that are alive that is not a climber. That could be a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
celebrity, an
yeah,
athlete, and someone you admire.
yeah. But I get that, and it would be cool to climb with so many people. But at the end of the day, if I had one
Cool.
person to choose to climb it, it would probably be a climber
That's awesome.
because I look up to them as the climber
Sure.
they are. So
Absolutely. And now, Joshua, do you train people? And I know you help establish gyms, climbing
yeah,
gyms across the state.
yeah.
Do you help people train? Like, is that something you do as well, like mountain climb training?
No, I probably eventually I will do stuff like that, help people train and stuff. But I do always bring I don't do any classes or anything yet, but people approach me, want to know about climbing, want to try climbing. I invite everyone who's interested in coming to me with the gym, and I kind of give them private lessons for free. It's my passion and I enjoy it. So it's not like we do it a weekly, we do it once in a while, but like I do help a lot of people out at the gym. I give all my advice. I People want to try climbing. I don't be like, okay, come to the gym with me. I'll charge you. I'll be like, oh, come with me and I'll give you tips and tricks and help you get started. But I didn't right now I don't have a business for that, but maybe
Sure.
eventually, yeah, I'll start actually want to teach, uh actually teach, yeah.
That's awesome. And you're a rope access tech by like profession. So you're
Yeah,
pretty much meeting a lot of people in that area anyways, who are like
yeah,
hanging on
yeah,
ropes and doing the work. That's
yeah.
that's really awesome. Now, if someone wants to reach out to you, just talk to you more about mountain climbing, where can they find you?
Well, on my Instagram, Joshua P11, or on TikTok. And if you even when you go on my Instagram, you can open the link and find my email. So yeah,
Sure.
I answer everybody who writes to me on Instagram. So yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, Joshua, thank you so much for your time. It was a really nice conversation. I appreciate you giving us an insight. I actually myself learned so much about mountain climbing. I've just climbed like maybe twice in my life, indoor.
mhm,
I've had
yeah.
friends, but like this changes the whole perspective of the game. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow the Instagram page 2325fitness for more health and fitness information. If you have any questions, please send us an email at 2325.fit@gmail.com, and please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast.